Welcome! Today I'm giving you my full method for hand sewing accurately, exactly to a line. And you can do this. Anyone can do this, provided that you have three things which are very important. First of all, proper equipment, a good quality hand saw, it's very important, and also in combination with a sturdy workbench or any means to hold your work securely. Second, you're gonna need the knowledge I'm giving you in this video. And third, you're gonna need some iteration, some practice. But don't think you need to spend a lifetime of woodworking to get optimal results. Not at all. Only if you do it in a very sloppy and unattentive way, then it will take many years. But most of my students in 10 days, they get this kind of perfect dovetails just after these 10 days with me at level 1. And there's always one student at least that gets it perfect for the first time, or nearly perfect. So there's hope, and if you follow the method and all the details I'm gonna give you, you will see the quality of your sewing will improve a lot. And there is an enormous amount of satisfaction in just knowing that you can sew comfortably, relaxed, knowing that it's gonna come out well. And you will get there very quickly. So, a lot of information today, and we'll begin with a little bit of information on saws, okay? Just a brief summary of saw recommendations. This is a model made by VERITA'S. This is a dovetail saw, and it's a very good quality saw, but at a rather affordable price. You could spend your whole life working with this one, and you would be happy with it. Any saw, by the way, is meant to be used only with 3 fingers inside, and it won't let you put the index finger here. That is very uncomfortable, you will see, but this feels very ergonomic and very nice. Here you have all the sensitivity you need to actually notice any variation, any build-up of friction that comes out when you start twisting your saw. And that is a very important part. So a good saw is ergonomic, okay? That's important. Here's another model. This one is my favorite saw so far, and it's made by LIE-NIELSEN with superior materials, I would say. It works just as well as this one, but it's a bit more costly. So this one could be right for you if you're tight on a budget. This one has a premium price for premium materials, and I just like them both, so you could use this. And then there is Woodworking Toolworks, which are doing a great job, amazing hand saws as well, to the same quality of these two. So here you have 3 brands that you can actually rely on, okay? Let's move on to body stands, which is a very important part. There's a French saying, which is bien scié vient des pieds, meaning good sewing comes from your feet. And this is so true, so important. So imagine the tile grate here on the floor. It's parallel to my workbench. So now I am in a parallel position to my workbench, and this is not what I want, okay? Equally, I don't want to be perpendicular to the workbench. I want to be actually at a 45 degrees here at a diagonal in this way. Remember, I am right-handed. If you're left-handed, of course, you are the other way around. Also, you must be balanced, and your body weight should be in both feet. Okay, I see my students very quickly, especially as they get tired, they lean on one foot and let the other one, just like Michelangelo's David, in this very ridiculous position for woodworking. It might look nice for a statue, but it's nowhere where you want to be, okay? If you're going to do some proper hand sewing, you need to be stable, and your body needs to be on both legs, and this is so important. And I'm fed up of seeing students just getting lazy and starting being all wobbly in their body because they are not rooted. So being rooted is a big part, okay? And continuing also with with the part of body stance and body ergonomics, it's an ideal situation to be sewing with your forearm more or less parallel to the floor. Okay, so at this height, that is the most comfortable because it will keep your back completely straight. You could also, of course, you can lean on the work and work at that height, and many people spend their lifetime doing this, but it is much better to have something that will allow you to sew higher. And in my case, I'm using the MOXON VISE. I'll leave you some links down below for MOXON VISE hardware so that you can make your own or buy your own MOXON VISE. Okay, invaluable tool, especially for dovetailing. Another thing you're gonna need is lights. So one of these inexpensive lamps are great. It will give you not only light, but also it helps you to project shadows in the direction you want so that you can see more clearly. I'm going to turn it in a minute. And for now, I just wanted to show you the exercise we're going to be doing. This is through wedged mortise and tenon. Okay, and I've got here the mortise made, ready for work, and then here I have my tenon marked out as neatly as I possibly could, and I'll tell you everything about my method for laying out this kind of joint in the future. But today we start from here, okay? And the goal here is to get the 8 cuts I need, 8 saw cuts to get this to fit into the mortise and to create a tenon, ideally without having to resort to pairing or anything else. There's always some work to do, and of course you hope for the best, and then if the tenon is too fat, I'll show you a method to get it to thin it down in a very controlled way. If it's too thin, I'll show you ways to correct it also. But it's a good idea that you should try and get it straight from the saw. This is very classic theory. Many people nowadays get very precious and they do lots of pairing, but as soon as you get 200 dovetails for a chest of drawers, then pairing is gonna mean a lot of extra time, perhaps well, many hours of extra time. So you can cut this back, and great craftspeople like Alan Peters, he was very persistent on that you should get the joints straight from the saw. Okay, so let's put this aside for now. I'm coming in. Okay, here's a tip for you. Never sew with the piece too high up because there is a certain amount of flexibility here, and so everything's gonna move and vibrations will be a problem. So try and stay as low as you can, as long as you don't damage the workbench or your MOXON VISE. And then I'm gonna get the light in place. I'm beginning with the 2 small shoulder cuts, with the 2 small cheek cuts, because these are very easy. There will be very few teeth engaged, and we can cut them just as if they were dovetails, in the sense that I'm gonna come straight down this way. You will see the other cheeks will do them differently. Okay, so I come at a 45 degree, and it's an important part that your finger, the back of the saw, and your forearm here, they should feel more or less in line, okay, in this way, and they must be unhindered. Some students, they just get themselves right in front of the work, and then they sew with a crooked arm this way. This is not at all good practice, and it's a common mistake among beginners. So you need to get out of the way. That's why we're standing at the diagonal here. So first of all, I'm going to saw on the end grain only. I'm going to focus to make a small trench on the end grain here. And it is very important for you to know that we never saw on the line. We actually saw right next to the line on the waist side. Okay, so it's a good idea now to just get it marked. So I'm gonna come in here in this way. Okay, and what's important here is the lines, and we never saw exactly on a line. We saw just right next to it, and that's very important from the waist side. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just to mark the waist side here, 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 and that's very important. Okay, because if I saw next to the line on the wrong side, on the keep side, the tenon is going to be or loose by the saw curve. So we're removing some wood, and that removing of wood needs to be on the waist side. So as I was saying, the first thing is to make a small nick on the end grain here. I'm only going to focus on this line. Obviously this one, I don't see it. This one here, I will focus later. So first of all, it's just getting straight across. Okay, and here comes the issue of jamming. That's very common among students when they begin working. Here is what you need to understand. A saw doesn't saw downwards. It saws onwards if it's a Western saw. So all the pressure you put on it is counterproductive, because every tooth will become a break, and it will just bite the wood and it won't allow you to progress. So if you see here, all good quality saw handles, they have this little hook here. This hook is meant to let you rest the saw without making any effort. Okay, and all the weight of the saw is in your hand, so that when you come to the workpiece, it's going to be only a caress and no more than that. Okay, if you need to increase something, it might be speed, but not pressure. This is a little bit of an overstatement, but it's a good way for you to understand that all downward pressure doesn't help, actually. And it's a very common mistake also to try to force the tool into the job. Especially as we get nervous, you will put this finger inside. Sometimes you don't even notice that, and you start gripping very hard and pushing very strong. And this is no way in which to achieve good results. Okay, your hand must be relaxed. You don't need to grip the saw very strongly, maybe like holding an egg or a child's hand. Those are common examples, and this will give you all the sensitivity you need to notice any change, any build-up in friction, okay, which is very important for learning how to saw to the line. Remember, we need to develop what's called muscle memory. Muscle memory is nothing but a link, a network of neurons from your eyes to your hand, okay, that will tell you exactly to saw what you're saying, to saw straight to the line in an involuntary way. Okay, so these neurons will start to link together in the beginning in a very weak way, in a temporary way, but as you keep progressing and repeating, these neurons will start forming links that are long-lasting, and this is your muscle memory. So you need to be relaxed and attentive to all those things in order to develop your muscle memory as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. Okay, it's not numb repetition only. Okay, it's a focused repetition, if you like to say it this way. Another important aspect is that the line stays on my side, and I'm viewing things from the left here. So the saw is not blocking my view of the line, and I like to have the waist on the right side and the keep side on the left side. Okay, that's my way of working. Some people do it differently, but I think for students is the best. And so I'm going to start very soft, and maybe I don't want to start with all the teeth engaged in the wood, so I'm going to just tilt it a little bit, just like so, ever so slightly, and I'll start caressing the wood as if it were, okay? And as you can see, here I have my thumb with its nail, which is rubbing on this side, and the forefinger, the index finger goes this way, and this gives me direction. And this is the key combination to maintain direction, okay? Okay, so I have here the beginning of my saw curve, okay? You can see very clearly how I'm not destroying the line. Actually, from the front I can see the line being away and the curve on the right side of the line. And this is step one. So step one is always getting the end grain cut square. And that's a very important beginning. Now that I have this little tranche made here, this little saw curve, now I can just start paying attention to these lines so that I can go down plumb. So there I go. So I have two tricks for you here in order to get exactly plumb, okay? First of all, you can see the blade of your saw is like a mirror, and it will reflect all the lines you have. And since this cut here is square to the face, when I'm going down plumb, I will see all those lines projecting in a straight line, not in a broken line. So if you have look, this is plumb, this is out of plumb, this is plumb, this is out of plumb, okay? So that's a very good way to ensure that you are going down in a straight line and following the line you have laid out. And so now I know how to start my cut, the right orientation in this angle, okay? And I can just go down. Remember, you cannot saw curved lines because you will bend the plate and it actually won't allow you. So the orientation in the beginning will define the rest of the cut. So here I go, paying attention to the mirror, paying attention to the mirror, and also to this line in front of me. This one I cannot see it, but it doesn't matter. And remember to stay relaxed, particularly this hand tends to get cramped, and it's not helpful at all. Now, as we progress down, we encounter a new problem. Very often students, they pay attention to the mirror, they pay attention to this line, but since they don't see this one, trying to stay close to the line on this face here, they will start pushing the saw this way, okay? And they will get a saw cut that is no longer square but skewed. And they follow the line on this side, but they get it crooked or out of the line on that side. Okay, that's a very common mistake, and I'll show you how to address this. You know, all the saws are set, meaning the teeth are bent alternatively to the left and to the right, and that means the saw curve is thicker than the plate itself. Okay, and so if I get into position, I can see there is a gap between the plate and the saw curve. If I watch closely, I can see this gap should be even, but if I start twisting the saw, I can see how the gap closes at either end, okay, this way. And this combined with the buildup of friction will tell me that I'm not going down in a straight line. All right, so remember to keep your hand relaxed and to pay attention for friction buildups. That's very important. And also to watch this gap being even. Okay, I'm nearly finishing, and I don't want to go across the line, but I don't want also to stay shy of the line. So try and get exactly to the line, just kiss the line on both sides. I can come through and see that I'm just not there, missing a little bit, and so I'm gonna come down, and I think that is enough. Yeah, that did it very well. So I'm done with that line, and now I'm going to make the second short cheek cut. And here I run into this problem I mentioned before. The waist is on the left side and the saw is hiding the line, which is on the other side. So you could go this way. Okay, that's perfectly possible. But to me, it's much better to turn the piece and work always from the left side, like so. Nope. Sometimes you just get this, and then you must remember to remove some pressure, downwards pressure, which is counterproductive. And also sometimes pointing to the sky ever so slightly, just like so, it will help a lot. So just come here, softer. So that's another way to do it. I'm nearly at the diagonal now, and I need to bring the saw level to finish the cut on both sides. And now again, I'm gonna have a look. I'm still a long way off. A little bit more. Yeah, okay. So these two cuts are the small cheek cuts, okay? And we've done them just the same as you would cut dovetails, really. Now the long cheeks, or the bigger cheeks here, the face of the tenon, usually it's much larger, and you have too many teeth engaged at the same time. So we need another strategy, and I'll show you in a minute. It's a strategy that splits the cut in 4 different movements, okay? The first one is gonna be scoring the end grain, making this beginning of the curve, and then we lower down the handle of the tool this way until we reach a diagonal, and we will have made a cut that goes from this side to this side, this way, okay? And then we'll do another cut that connects this corner to this corner, and finally we're going to remove this small triangle here, okay? That's what I'm going to show you in a minute. So I get back to this position, and now I begin just like before. I'm gonna score the end grain, making sure I get the right positioning on the saw right next to the line. Here. I'm halfway, but I'm seeing I'm doing fine, so I'm gonna continue. And now that I am well established in my curve, what I'm doing is just dropping the handle, but you must not do like so, okay? If you disengage from the curve you're creating, you will wander, you will twist. So you need to stay within the curve and yet start lowering the handle this way. You can also watch for the mirror here and everything we've discussed earlier. Okay, so now I've done this diagonal here, okay, this way, and I want to do the other diagonal now. But of course, I'm not gonna sew this way for two reasons. One is that I cannot see the line, and the other one is that I am compressing the fibers. I'm fighting the wood here, and that's not what I want. So I'm just gonna turn the piece around, and I let the saw find the path of least resistance, which is actually the saw curve that is already established. And my only job is to let the saw stay where it wants to stay, okay? And from this position, I'm gonna tilt down to the other position in the other diagonal. Now, the line is going to be on the other side, and I have the waist side on my left. That's fine because the saw is guiding me now. So here you go. I begin here, and then I start gently dropping the handle. Okay, and now you remember this tiny triangle I have at the base. Now it's time to get it off, and it's the fourth part of the cut. Okay, so I'm right down to the line, and you might be wondering why we do first the 4 rip cuts along the grain. That's because if we ever did or made this crosscut here, obviously not in this position, but if this chunk of wood falls off, all the markings we have made, they fall off with it. So first of all, the 4 rip cuts, and then the 4 crosscuts that we'll be doing next. But let me just finish this one first. Okay, so rip cuts done. Let's go to the cross cuts. I have a few tips for you. Let me just clear out, because the cross cut work happens in this area of the workbench for me. So I'm going to move the light also. And so the shoulder line here is all the user of the piece of furniture will see ever. Also, in this case, since this is a through tenon, of course, the end grain of your through tenon with the wedges and so on. And we'll be making a video on how to make the wedges and how to fit them here. Not today, but quite possibly next week. And so this knife line here is everything anyone's gonna ever see. That means if I protect this knife line, everything's gonna be fine. Okay, but please make sure you have it, that it's very well marked, no twin lines or no double lines anywhere. And so I'm going to come here and I will make a small step with the chisel. Okay, so as you can see, I'm a little bit further away from the line and I am at a very low angle. I don't come in at 45 degrees, but just a very low angle, and I just lean on the chisel. And you can see both my hands are on the chisel. That's very important. It's the only way you can make sure you will never stab yourself. Never do this. That's the shortest way to go to the hospital. Okay, so I come in here. Okay, and I have this little step now that will allow me to register the saw exactly against the knife line. I just go all the way around. Okay, so now I can take my bench hook, very important tool. This is one of the tools we will make in the online school of woodworking, not only to produce a tool that you have to make for yourself, but also to learn the proper technique for creating reference surfaces, for correcting squareness, and many other hand planing operations that you need to master before you begin your woodworking journey. Okay, so I'm gonna come in here, and I could do this just with the same crosscut saw, with the same dovetail saw, which is a saw that is good for any kind of small joinery like this one. But since I have a dedicated crosscut saw, I'm gonna use it now. It's just a little bit more comfortable to use, has larger teeth, and they are filed in a different way, and it makes more of a finer work. But really, you don't need it. And the only cut that's gonna be visible, as I was saying, it's already done, so you won't have any splinters on the keep side, even if you use a dovetail saw. So here I come, and now I can use everything you've learned so far, but in this new situation. I'm pinching the work this way, so it's secured in place, and my index finger can help me guide the saw exactly. You see, I'm using exactly the same principles, the mirror trick, everything is the same thing. Yeah. And there we are. You see the waist has just come off. That's because the rib cut went down to the baseline. If you stay shy of the baseline, your waist will stay here put, and you will keep sewing, and you will sew actually into the tenon. That's a common mistake. So I'm gonna do the other side now. So you can feel the saw registering against that step we've created with the chisel, and now I can start. Here it is. Okay, you see that's not falling off, and I'm already at the point. That means the rib cut didn't go through, so I'm just gonna take a few minutes, few seconds. I get in the right position here, okay, and I just finish this cut like so. Just that simple. Okay, here's my offcut. So let's analyze what we have here. If you can see, there is very clearly the knife line, which is a bunch of compressed fibers at the perimeter of this shoulder. We have the clean shoulder and almost nothing in the way. We have very little work to do left. The cheeks have come out very clean, very clear, no steps in them, so it looks right. I don't know if that's gonna fit as it should, if it's gonna be perhaps a little bit too tight or too loose, but it should be around there. There's always, of course, some little work to do right down there at the corners, and sometimes even you need to remove some ways that you just separate it from the knife line a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just identify with a stab this way. We call this the release cut, and it helps to release the fibers when I come and chop them. And I'm gonna do the same thing in this side here. And now I can come finally, and I will just remove this little bit. And this way. Very little work. Okay, this I don't need it. And now, before we try the joint, I want to make sure there are no bumps in those shoulders. Okay, sometimes you get some bumps and you need to do some chisel work, but I think that's clear by now that you can get this straight from the saw. And I don't have special skills, just a lot of experience, but anyone can do this, really. So I'm gonna check for bumps with a straight edge. Now I'm using the edge of my chisel, the side of my chisel, which I trust, and I must make sure I can touch both baselines. So here and here, I should be able to touch them at the same time. That is proof that there are no bumps in this shoulder. So always against a bench, always against a light, it's much better. Okay, here I can see a little bumpy right there. So I'm gonna correct this. Okay. Now, Mr. David Charlesworth, he liked very much sewing away from the line and then pairing back to the line with a technique he called tenting. In my opinion, that's a loss of time. You should be able to get the perfect cuts straight from the saw, and you shouldn't spend a whole afternoon just dressing shoulders. To me, that makes just no sense. He tells us in his books that he was forced to use his right hand, but he was a left-hander, really. So he had no confidence in his hand skills, and that's why he was such bad sawyer. But you can do better for sure. And so this might look familiar because it's based on his methods. I'm gonna find what horizontal is, and then I come down and I step on my knife line. Remember, it's this perimeter of compressed fibers, which I don't want to destroy. I want to protect it. So I'm gonna step on it and never cut on it. And then I will raise the handle a little bit, because I can create a little bit of an undercut this way. Much better than having a bump this way, which is the problem I'm having now. So back here, step on this, raise the handle a little bit, compress my body, and just lean on the chisel and do this tiny cut. And that's all it takes, really. I think that's all. Let me check again. Yeah, that did it. Actually, I can see I'm touching both knife lines and perhaps a little bit of line in between, which is a good sign. That means we're gonna close everywhere, and that's a good thing. I'm gonna just remove the sauce that I don't need anymore. There it goes. It's a good thing to keep the bench uncluttered as much as you can. When you have many tools, they will start banging against each other, and that's a source of blemishes and problems. And now it's time to try the joint itself. So let's see how we did. I don't know if that's gonna come out right or wrong. Maybe it's a little bit too fat, a little bit loose. The difference between the ideal fit and too loose or too tight, it's 1/10 of a millimeter, 4/1000 of an inch. And here I have, a good teaching material that helps us understand the amount of friction you want. You want the kind of joint that will close only with hand pressure, this way, and yet both pieces stay together. That's exactly what you're looking for. You shouldn't need a hammer at this stage. Perhaps when you put the glue inside and everything swells, then maybe a few hammer blows. But in the dry fit, it should be just easy. Okay, so let's see. It is very important that we test the surfaces individually. If you try and put everything together at once, you won't really know where the pressure is building up. So the first thing I do is to check for length in the tenon or for width in the tenon. Okay, so from small cheek to small cheek this way. And I can see here, I go down very tight. There is absolutely no wiggle room, and yet, well, there is some friction, but not much. This is ready to fall off. That's spot on, okay? The important bits are the long cheeks, where the most of the surface gluing area is going to be, and also the corresponding surface for the small cheeks is end grain on those sides. And traditionally, end grain has been not considered a proper glue surface. Now, modern science has kind of challenged this idea, but for the most part, we stick to this principle. So now I know I'm fine in this orientation. Now I can start checking for thickness, which is the critical dimension. So I'm going to check first one diagonal, and I can see there is some friction, but I can fit it very easily from both corners. Okay, so that's good. And now I think I'm ready to just go all the way inside. I'm going to use the gap in my split top workbench, because this tenon is going to be protruding now. So this goes this way. That looks really nice already. Let's see. Yeah, that's a very good amount of pressure. Not too much. Perhaps a little bit thick in the end, but I think I can just push it in safely. All shoulders are perfectly closed, and I can see a very nice finish. So I've been lucky today. We could thin this down. I don't work on cheeks with a chisel. I do it with a router plane, and I'll tell you everything about that in the online school of woodworking. One of the very first projects we're doing is a stool, which will help us dive very deep into mortise and tenon joinery of different kinds. And I wanted to bring your attention to a small gap I have here. This small gap is actually a knife line, which is waiting to swell back with the moisture of the glue, giving us the seamless result you can see in here. We're still missing the wedges. The wedges will come in next video. I'll show you how to make even wedges. And I actually will go to the bandsaw, and I'll show you also a jig, very interesting jig for the bandsaw. Yeah, so that was that for today. I hope you liked it. I hope you'll give us a thumbs up and subscribe. That's very, very helpful to us. And yeah, so see you next week.